What would happen if the man chosen to save humanity hated humanity more than the demons he was ordered to destroy? Ren had survived fire, persecution, and starvation, so a shining hero's sacred prophecy only made him laugh. Before this story ended, the vagrant everyone dismissed would give an abandoned demon race something even their gods never offered. His name was Ren, and when destiny found him, he was asleep in a filthy stable. Mud covered his clothes, hay stuck to his hair, and hunger had already become an old companion. A blast of freezing water ripped him from sleep and sent him coughing into the straw. Ren assumed the stable owner had finally discovered his hiding place and come to throw him outside. Instead, a man in brilliant golden armor stood over him like a walking monument to wealth. A shy young mage waited behind that armored stranger, gripping a staff with both hands. The arrogant man introduced himself as Gareth, a hero personally chosen by the gods. Then Gareth raised a glowing sacred book and announced that Ren was the Sage of Destiny. According to the artifact, Ren was supposed to join the hero and help defeat the Demon King. Together, they would save the world, earn glory, and fulfill the will of the goddess. Ren nearly laughed in Gareth's face. There had been a time when saving people actually sounded meaningful to him. Ren had not been born in this strange world of magic demons, churches, and divine heroes. Memories of another world still lived inside his head, along with knowledge this civilization had never developed. At first, he had honestly tried to help. He designed tools that could improve farming and reduce the labor needed to produce food. He experimented with machines that could make ordinary lives easier. None of those inventions required legendary bloodlines, sacred swords, or powerful mana. That was exactly why the people in power hated them. The church called his ideas heresy. Nobles destroyed his work before common people could understand what he was offering. Ren was nearly burned alive for threatening a world built around supernatural privilege. He escaped, but whatever idealistic fool had once wanted to improve society died in those flames. Now Ren wanted something much simpler. Half a loaf of bread would have been enough. The world could burn after that. So when Gareth ordered the legendary sage to follow him, Ren casually refused. He even gave the hero a friendly pat on the shoulder. Gareth slapped his dirty hand away with open disgust. Ren studied the spotless armor, the decorative sword, and the proud chin raised toward the stable roof. Everything about Gareth screamed that he had never understood what it meant to crawl through misery. So Ren told him exactly what he thought. Any goddess who chose someone like Gareth had to be blind. That single insult shattered the hero's dignity. Gareth punched Ren across the face. Ren crashed against a wooden post and tasted blood. Yet instead of fear, something old and bitter woke inside him. He had already stood close enough to death to smell his own burning flesh. Why should one spoiled hero frighten him? Ren cursed Gareth's goddess and lunged forward like a starving wild dog. His dirty fist landed squarely on Gareth's nose. The blow barely injured the hero. The mud and smell covering Ren's hand did far more damage to Gareth's pride. Gareth lost control. He knocked Ren down and beat him again and again. Ren curled around his ribs because there was nothing else his weak body could do. But he kept laughing. He laughed at Gareth. He laughed at the prophecy. Most of all, he laughed at this ridiculous world. The young mage finally grabbed Gareth's arm and begged him to stop before Ren died. Gareth looked down at the bloody vagrant and declared that the sacred book had made a mistake. This man was no sage. He was merely a mad heretic. Gareth left the stable without looking back. The little mage remained for one quiet moment. She placed a healing potion near Ren, whispered an apology, and hurried after the hero. Ren lay alone beneath the broken stable roof, every part of his body aching. A hero chosen by the gods had nearly killed a starving man for touching his armor. The joke almost wrote itself. What Ren failed to notice was the figure watching him from the shadows. Someone else had heard the prophecy. Someone else had seen the sage reject humanity's hero. Ren, meanwhile, cared about a much more practical problem. He hid the healing potion inside his torn shirt. Drinking something that valuable would have been a terrible financial decision. Old Tom might exchange it for 10 loaves of black bread and a pot of stew. With his future feast carefully planned, Ren closed his eyes. He expected sunlight to wake him later. Instead, cool air and an unfamiliar perfume reached his nose. Perfume inside a stable filled with manure and rats could only mean trouble. Ren immediately activated his greatest survival technique. He pretended to be dead asleep. His breathing slowed. Fake snores followed. The woman standing nearby was not impressed. She loudly announced that a sick vagrant had been discovered and suggested calling the stable owner. Ren sat upright immediately. Losing this sleeping place meant spending autumn nights under the freezing stone bridge outside town. That kind of cold could kill a half-starved man. Ren raised both hands and prepared to negotiate. Then he saw the woman. She was tall, striking, and dressed in fitted leather armor. Her eyes were far too amused. She asked Ren directly whether he was the Sage of Destiny. Ren collapsed back into the hay. He covered his face and claimed the sage had gone outside before turning right. Ren was merely a useless man peacefully waiting for his end. The stranger laughed. Her name was Cecilia of the Nightshade. She served as one of the Demon King's highest lieutenants. Her specialty was assassination. Ren decided the day was becoming unnecessarily complicated. Cecilia had come because the demon side also knew about the sacred sage. Normally, killing such a person before he joined the hero would have been obvious. Ren calmly explained why that would be foolish. The sacred book had not completely bound itself to him. If Cecilia killed Ren now, the artifact would simply search for another compatible sage. That replacement might be brave, loyal, and excited to destroy the demons. Leaving Ren alive created the opposite result. Gareth would permanently lose the powerful companion his goddess had prepared for him. Why eliminate a man who had already refused to become an enemy? Cecilia considered the argument. Annoyingly, the filthy vagrant was right. So assassination disappeared from the table and recruitment took its place. Cecilia offered Ren wealth. He rejected it. Money was worthless when he lacked the strength to stop powerful nobles from stealing it. Cecilia offered him authority. Ren described authority as paperwork followed by blame. She offered servants. Ren pointed at his exhausted body and predicted he would collapse within 3 days. Every tempting offer crashed against the same wall of complete indifference. Instead of becoming angry, Cecilia looked increasingly interested. That reaction worried Ren far more than anger would have. Her eyes suddenly changed. Ren warned her not to move closer because he had not bathed in several days. Cecilia answered with her fist. Darkness swallowed him. His beautiful plan of doing nothing and bothering nobody had completely failed. Ren eventually woke with a pounding head. Giant black pillars surrounded him. Cold stone covered the floor. There was no golden throne, luxurious carpet, or mountain of treasure. The supposed demon castle looked like an unfinished warehouse. Cecilia leaned against a pillar and watched him with that irritating smile. Ren prepared to insult her. A silver-haired man's face suddenly appeared inches from his own. The stranger wore an elegant robe and possessed eyes far deeper than his playful expression suggested. He welcomed the esteemed sage. Ren asked whether he was the Demon King. The man told him to guess. Ren did not care enough to participate. Being kidnapped rather than killed proved that the demons considered him valuable. Ren immediately lay back on the floor and began making demands. He wanted a soft bed. He wanted a hot bath. He wanted roasted meat and ale. Miss even one condition and Ren threatened to bite through his tongue. His death would free the sacred artifact to choose an enthusiastic human sage. The demons could decide whether denying one vagrant dinner was worth creating a holy genius. The silver-haired man did not react to the threat. Instead, he began asking questions. Why had the artifact selected Ren? Ren had no mana. He possessed no battle energy. No academy, guild, or church had any record of his education. From this world's perspective, he had practically appeared from nowhere. Then the stranger deliberately attacked the one subject Ren could not ignore. He called Ren's inventions powerless junk. Ren could tolerate being called useless. He could survive humiliation and physical pain. He even admitted that he was not some unmatched genius. Most of his knowledge came from remembering achievements created by countless people in his previous world. That was precisely why insulting those inventions crossed a line. Farming tools, water systems, and machines were not merely Ren's work. They represented generations of accumulated human wisdom. Ren jumped up and charged. He shouted that productivity fed people, and technology advanced civilization. The silver-haired man rolled up his sleeves. No magic appeared. No terrifying demonic aura shook the castle. The two men simply started fighting like street dogs. They punched, grabbed, and rolled across the stone floor. Ren was half-starved, yet the mysterious demon seemed to deliberately match his physical strength. The man trapped Ren in a headlock and repeated his provocation. If those inventions were so magnificent, why had the church burned them? If they could not even defend themselves, how were they anything except trash? Years of frustration exploded from Ren. Every failure returned. Every noble who had laughed at him returned. Every scream from the day of his execution returned. Ren threw the man away, grabbed his collar, and shouted through blood running down his face. One day he would prove his knowledge mattered. He would use the things this world called trash to challenge every arrogant superhuman standing above ordinary people. Ren even swore that he would challenge the blind god watching from heaven. His words echoed through the empty hall. The silver-haired stranger smiled. There was no anger in that expression. There was satisfaction. He congratulated Ren. The fight had been an interview. His name was Mephist, Lord of all Realms, and according to Mephist, the proud sage had just been hired. Ren immediately understood that he had been manipulated. Mephis discovered his emotional weak point and pressed it perfectly. Ren had fallen into the trap like a fool. Surprisingly, that did not bother him very much. After everything humanity had done to him, Ren possessed no loyalty toward the human side. Nobles hoarded power. The church protected its authority. Ordinary people suffered regardless of which faction claimed moral superiority. The glorious holy war between gods and demons looked different from the bottom. To peasants' corpses did not become less dead because a holy flag covered them. If humans destroyed Ren's work, while demons offered him a place to build, the choice became simple. He understood the odds. A powerless mortal intended to challenge a civilization controlled by mana bloodlines and divine intervention. He might die before proving anything. But bodies disappeared while ideas survived. Plant one seed of progress deeply enough, and somebody else could continue after him. Ren grabbed Mephist's hand. He promised to prove that his so-called useless knowledge could change this world. Cecilia called him a little madman before melting back into the shadows. Once she disappeared, Ren remembered the healing potion hidden inside his shirt. His financial principles immediately collapsed. He drank every drop. The bruises faded and the pain across his body eased. Ren considered it his best decision of the day. Then he finally asked Mephist about the actual Demon King. Mephist explained that she was busy. Apparently ruling the demon realm involved mountains of paperwork and constant emergencies. Ren's image of a tyrant drinking wine on a throne of bones disappeared. The Demon King sounded more like an overworked office employee. Mephist suggested meeting her in the dining hall. Ren expected a demonic feast. He imagined entire roasted cattle and barrels of alcohol. The reality was painfully quiet. Demons in simple clothing sat at wooden tables and ate without celebration. Mephist brought Ren a bowl of thick gray soup. Unknown roots floated inside. A tiny piece of tough dried meat rested beside it. Ren stared at the tray. These were high-ranking demons, yet meat was considered a luxury. Mephist explained that wild magic saturated the demon realm. Seeds burned before sprouting or mutated into poisonous plants. The same magical environment that gave demons powerful bodies made agriculture almost impossible. Ren began eating. The soup had little flavor. The roots scratched his throat. Hunger still made the meal taste wonderful. Then Ren looked through the window. A thin demon girl was digging through the cracked red earth with her bare hands. She found a twisted root and immediately tried to eat it. An older boy rushed over and knocked it from her fingers. The plant was poisonous. The little girl sat in the dirt and cried. Ren recognized that cry. It was not a child demanding something delicious. It was the sound of a stomach that had hurt for too long. The boy gently picked her up and carried her toward a small stone hut. Ren's hand stopped halfway to his mouth. His soup suddenly had no taste. His stomach twisted with shame. He almost vomited. Instead, Ren lowered his head and continued eating every bite. Wasting food in a place like this would have been unforgivable. A quiet voice beside him asked the great sage not to waste anything. Ren turned. A white-haired girl stood nearby. She barely reached his chest. Black spiral horns rose from her head. Her dark robe was covered in patches. She carried the same miserable soup and dried meat as everyone else. Mephist immediately stood. The Lord of all realms placed a hand over his chest and bowed deeply. He greeted his demon king. Ren stared at the tiny girl. This was the monster human parents used to frighten children. She spoke more softly than a librarian. Either the church's intelligence agents were unbelievably incompetent, or humanity had been lying deliberately. Mephist excused himself to deal with another crisis. Human blockades had allowed merchants to raise salt prices by 30%. The Demon King ordered Mephist to avoid violence for the moment. Winter was coming. Frontline soldiers needed salt more than merchant corpses. Soon Ren and the girl were alone. She quietly finished her soup and wiped her mouth with a worn handkerchief. Then she asked Ren what he saw outside the window. He remembered the crying child. Ren answered that he saw barren land. The Demon King corrected him. She saw suffering. Beneath the curse's soil rested the largest magic crystal vein on the continent. Humans used those crystals as currency, magical fuel, and symbols of wealth. Demons were born carrying immense magical energy. To them, valuable crystals were merely stones. Stones could not fill empty stomachs. Humans desperately wanted the crystals. Directly invading demon territory was too dangerous. So, human powers cooperated with the church and called their economic campaign a holy crusade. Trade routes were blocked. Food supplies disappeared. Hunger was allowed to kill what armies feared to confront. Light against darkness was the public story. The ugly truth was a resource struggle wrapped in religious language. Ren asked why the demons refused to move. With their individual strength, taking human farmland should have been possible. The Demon King remained silent for a long moment. Then she explained that this land was their home. Their ancestors had been born here. Their dead rested beneath the same soil. Ren understood the word home better than most. His own world existed only in memories he could never return to. After their meal, the Demon King took him outside. Demon soil hummed beneath Ren's feet. He crouched and grabbed a handful of dark red earth streaked with black. Ren rubbed it between his fingers and smelled it. Beneath the magical contamination was fertile black soil. Rich earth had been transformed into a wasteland by uncontrolled energy. Ren called it a terrible waste. He returned to the place where the hungry girl had been digging. The strange root still rested nearby. It was twisted small and covered in purple-green patches. The Demon King called it a cursed poisonous plant. Eating one caused stomach pain, vomiting, and throat spasms. Only the truly desperate tried. Ren turned the ugly root over in his hand. His heartbeat accelerated. The demons were wrong. This was not some supernatural curse. It was a wild potato. Potatoes from Ren's former world had once possessed dangerous levels of natural toxins. Thousands of years of selection transformed wild varieties into ordinary food. The demon realm had never cultivated these plants. They remained close to their poisonous ancestors. That made them dangerous. It did not make them useless. Ren knew methods that could reduce the poison. The Demon King noticed the change in his eyes. She asked why such an ugly root suddenly seemed important. Ren stood and faced her. For the first time since arriving, his laziness disappeared. He told the Demon King that he might have found an answer to her people's hunger. She agreed to help before Ren finished explaining what he needed. Someone who watched children starve every day did not need additional motivation. Ren's first solution required ash and water. He ordered dry branches and grass burned into fine powder. The Demon King raised one hand. Blue flame consumed the entire pile within seconds. Ren stared at the efficiency. In his previous world, she would have been the greatest employee in any chemical factory. He asked her to mix clean water with the ash. Ash looked dirty and was associated with death, so the request confused her. She trusted him anyway. Water floated in the air. Gray ash swirled through it. Ren had the mixture boiled, cooled, and filtered. Work that might have required hours in an ordinary kitchen took the Demon King moments. A clear amber liquid remained. Ren recognized a natural alkaline solution. Chemistry offered a weapon this world's warriors had never considered. The potato was peeled and sliced thin. Invisible wind blades moved through the root faster than any kitchen knife. Paper-thin pieces fell into the heated solution. Ren warned that treatment required time. The Demon King immediately ignored him. She removed an unfinished slice and ate it. Ren nearly tackled her. She calmly explained that her body could survive a small amount of poison. After chewing, she evaluated the result. The potato was bitter. It was undercooked, but her throat did not burn. Her stomach did not cramp. The poison had been greatly reduced. Ren's method worked. Poisonous roots covered hills across the demon realm. Ash and water could transform those despised plants into emergency food. The Demon King stepped back. She bowed her head to the human standing before her. Then she offered him her hand and gave him something more important than a royal title. Her real name was Ashley. Ren understood the trust hidden inside that introduction. He straightened his back, took her hand, and finally introduced himself without pretending to be useless. His name was Ren. That night, the former vagrant cooked for the entire demon leadership. He cleaned himself, changed into fitted black clothing, and entered the castle kitchen. Using treated potatoes and minced beast meat, Ren prepared simple baked potato cakes. The ingredients were humble. He refused to let the food taste hopeless. Ashley sat at the head of a long table. 8 demon lords surrounded her. Mephist and Cecilia were among them. A masked warlord, a lion-headed beast man, and a hunched undead sorcerer filled other seats. These were the strongest beings in the demon realm. Ren, a powerless human, sat among them. Nobody celebrated the meal. The holy war had already been declared. Heroes were gathering in human territory. Some demon lords at the table expected to die. When dinner ended, Ashley gave a painful order. Children, elderly demons, sick civilians, and anyone unable to fight would evacuate north. Ashley could not prevent the battle. She intended to save as many ordinary lives as possible. The demon lords accepted her decision with the silence of people rehearsing their own funerals. Ren slammed his cup onto the table. He could not understand why beings capable of crushing stone walls were surrendering emotionally before combat began. Why not break the trade blockade? Why not trap the heroes? Why not make invasion expensive? The demons looked at Ren as if a child had interrupted a military council. Ashley patiently explained the real problem. Demons possessed tremendous individual power. They lacked unity, allies, and divine protection. Humans had a goddess who provided miracles. Elves possessed their world tree. Dwarves received blessings from a god of forging. Sacred artifacts healed wounds and broke impossible defenses. Every major race had supernatural support from something above the mortal world. The demons had nothing. For thousands of years they had risen. God-blessed heroes crushed them. Survivors retreated and recovered. Another generation of heroes eventually arrived to hunt them again. This was not a fair war. The game had been designed against them. Ren went quiet. Clever battlefield tactics could overcome stronger soldiers. They meant less when the enemy possessed divine cheat codes. A deep laugh suddenly broke the tension. The speaker was Baru, a demon lord built like a mountain. Crumbs from Ren's potato cake still covered his massive body. Baru told everyone to stop mourning before they were dead. Yes, demons had lost repeatedly. Every previous war had also followed the same pattern. Perhaps this time one important piece was different. Baru pointed directly at Ren. No god had given the demons even one grain of food. Ren had entered their kingdom and turned a poisonous weed into something edible on his first day. The powerless human had accomplished something divine miracles never bothered to do. Every demon lord looked toward Ren. Ren remembered the church flames. He remembered nobles destroying machines they never tried to understand. Then he looked at the people around Ashley's table. Ren picked up a golden piece of cooked potato. For the first time in years, victory no longer felt completely ridiculous. After the banquet, demon lords returned to their territories. Their first mission was teaching civilians how to treat wild potatoes safely. Ashley disappeared beneath the endless responsibilities of a collapsing kingdom. Ren went to the Grand Library. Memphis normally managed the enormous collection. Merchant negotiations had pulled him away. 2 floating magical puppets were left to retrieve books from high shelves. Ren already understood an uncomfortable truth. Physics and basic science alone would not let his weak body challenge gods. He knew theoretical designs for engines. The demon realm lacked precision tools and suitable materials. Knowing how advanced steel worked did not magically create an industrial furnace. Blueprints inside Ren's memories were useless without infrastructure. He needed another path. Knowledge from Earth had to combine with the magical rules of this world. Ren ignored magnificent forbidden spells. He had no interest in legendary space magic. Instead, he searched for subjects powerful mages considered boring: airflow, friction, low-level wind magic, the boiling properties of water slimes, the way magical energy faded inside cheap ore. Abandoned manuscripts and notes from unsuccessful mages covered his desk. Other people saw useless research. Ren saw foundations. Nobody built a tower without understanding the ground beneath it. He studied until darkness covered the library. One candle remained beside him. Then the shadows moved. Cecilia appeared behind Ren without warning. He complained that her entrances would eventually kill someone from shock. Cecilia ignored him and examined the books. Why would a man with no mana study low-level magical theory? Ren could memorize every page and still fail to cast a fireball. That was not the point. Ren explained that this civilization used magic in an incredibly wasteful way. Fire mages created giant explosions. Water mages summoned floods. Both approaches were impressive. Neither was efficient. What happened if a magic circle produced steady, controlled heat? That heat could boil water. Expanding steam could be directed using wind or water magic. Controlled motion could drive machinery. Machines could perform work beyond human or animal muscle. A farmer would not need battle energy. A worker would not need a noble bloodline. Forgotten magical rules could become real mechanical power. That was the miracle Ren intended to build. Cecilia stared as though he were speaking an unknown language. Ren asked why she was not spying on Gareth. Cecilia immediately became defensive. Her shadow movement could cross the continent in moments. She had merely returned to make sure Ren had not burned down the library. Purple mist swallowed her before Ren could respond. Later news reached the demon castle about Gareth's behavior. The chosen hero had taken a poor town's last old cows for his personal meals. Those animals were needed to plow fields in spring. Gareth also split a street with battle energy because local residents annoyed him. He called the destruction justice and left without paying for repairs. The young mage eventually asked him about the sage found in the stable. Gareth became furious. He ordered her never to mention Ren again. In Gareth's imagination, the filthy heretic had probably frozen beneath a bridge. He intended to ask a high priest to purify the sacred book. The artifact would surely select a proper sage afterward. Gareth wanted someone noble, idealistic, righteous. Ren laughed when he heard. Gareth's definition of righteousness apparently included beating starving vagrants and stealing cattle from poor farmers. Ren stayed inside the library through the entire night. Morning light eventually passed through stained glass. His eyes were red. His hair had become a disaster from constant frustrated pulling. The potato treatment was important. It was not enough to support a civilization. Wild potatoes grew unpredictably. Ren needed dependable, high-yield crops. The central obstacle was wild magic inside demon soil. Ordinary seeds burned or mutated. Ren asked a different question. What if he created a small space containing no wild magic? Normal crops could survive inside a magic-free environment. Mephist entered the library after arguing with merchants all night. He jokingly asked whether Ren had finally learned a water spell. Ren dragged him toward a charcoal blueprint. The drawing showed a dome-shaped building. A magical suppression array surrounded its base. Ren called the structure a greenhouse. The array would cancel wild magical energy inside. Clean soil and stable air would allow ordinary plants to grow. Mephist's eyes brightened. Then practical experience destroyed his excitement. Crops required months. Maintaining a large suppression array for months demanded enormous magical power. Demon warriors would have to stand around the field like living batteries. Once their mana failed, the barrier would collapse. Wild energy would destroy the entire harvest. Ren smiled. Mephist was still thinking within the assumptions of his world. Nobody said people had to power the array. Ren produced a dusty book about automatic fortress defenses. Large city barriers already drew energy from embedded magical cores. The old technology existed. Ren only needed to change its purpose. Replace the attack module with suppression. Connect a power source. Mephist asked what they could possibly use. Ren slapped the table. Magic crystals. The demon realm controlled the largest crystal vein on the continent. Demons considered those crystals nearly worthless because their bodies naturally produced magical energy. Their useless rocks could power greenhouses automatically. No demon warriors would stand inside fields for months. The greatest curse of the demon realm suddenly became an advantage. Too much magic had prevented agriculture. Massive crystal resources could now finance artificial agricultural environments. Mephist understood the brilliance. Then he identified another problem. Even the largest crystal mine would eventually empty if greenhouses spread across the entire realm. Ren had already found a possible answer. A poor human mage named Elk had once studied atmospheric magical energy. Elk could not afford expensive crystals. He designed a formation that gathered scattered mana from the air. The formation condensed that energy into low-grade crystals. Human lands contained too little atmospheric mana. Elk's invention was dismissed as useless. The demon realm was different. Magic in the air was strong enough to mutate plants. Gathering formations could continuously absorb that excess energy. Atmospheric mana would become low-grade crystals. Those crystals would power suppression arrays. Suppression arrays would protect greenhouses. Greenhouses would produce food. It was a self-sustaining cycle. Mephist stared at the messy drawings. His understanding of what qualified as useful knowledge began breaking apart. He suddenly grabbed Ren's wrist. The elegant lord of all realms forgot every bit of his dignity. Mephist dragged Ren from the chair and sprinted through the castle. They had to show Ashley immediately. Outside a carved wooden door, Mephist suddenly stepped aside. He gestured for Ren to enter first. Ren assumed they had reached Ashley's office. He opened the door without knocking. It was not an office. Ashley was lying on her bed in loose white pajamas. Her hair remained wet from a bath. Her legs moved lazily through the air while she read documents. Ashley looked up. Ren froze. 1 second passed. Then another. Ren stepped backward and slammed the door. Mephist stared innocently at the ceiling. Ren asked whether the demon had planned this. Mephist claimed he merely allowed the Miracle Maker an opportunity to knock. The door opened again. Ashley now wore her usual black robe. Her face was colder than winter. Unless Ren and Mephist had something important, both men were going into the Abyss River. Ren immediately shoved the blueprint toward her. He explained suppression arrays, crystal batteries, mana-gathering formations. Ashley's anger became surprise. Surprise became excitement. She grabbed Ren and ordered everyone outside. Ashley floated above the wasteland. Her fingers drew complex formation patterns through the air. Within minutes, a transparent dome stood on barren soil. 50 square meters inside had been stripped of dangerous wild magic. Ren stared with his mouth open. He had spent an entire night drawing the design in charcoal. Ashley had practically constructed it with a wave of her fingers. Magic suddenly looked like a three-dimensional printer combined with a precision manufacturing machine. Ashley planted a berry seed inside. Green life energy flowed from her palms. A sprout broke through the soil. Stems stretched. Leaves unfolded. 30 seconds later, flowers appeared. Ren nearly shouted at Ashley. How could someone possess such an absurd agricultural ability while her nation starved? Mephist explained the limitation. Life magic was extremely rare. It also consumed tremendous energy. More importantly, life magic accelerated growth without changing the environment. On cursed demon soil, faster growth only produced faster mutation and death. Wren's greenhouse changed that equation. The suppression array created clean conditions. Ashley's life magic finally had healthy ground to work with. The berry bush remained normal. No poison. No mutation. The system worked. Ashley turned toward Mephist with the expression of a true ruler. Every demon lord would receive copies of the formation. Unnecessary defensive projects were suspended. Greenhouses became the kingdom's priority. The greedy merchants could continue raising prices temporarily. Ashley called it their last meal. Once demon harvests began, those traders would repay every stolen coin with interest. Then Ashley faced Wren. The Demon King lowered her aura and bowed. She promised that the demon race would remember his kindness. Wren was nearly too tired to process the moment. Ashley noticed. She personally led him toward his new room. Wren expected another pile of hay. Mephist quietly warned him to keep walking. The Demon King was personally escorting him to his quarters. The room was small but clean. A broad window overlooked demon territory. Ashley revealed that the previous Demon King Caesar had once slept there. Nobody had opened the room since Caesar sacrificed himself. A gentle magical wind removed years of dust. After Ashley left, Wren did not immediately sleep. He opened a drawer. Handmade wooden animals rested inside. There was also a necklace of polished stones and several dried wildflowers. The objects had almost no monetary value. Wren understood that they had mattered deeply to Caesar. He left them untouched. Another drawer contained a thick notebook. It was Caesar's diary. Early pages burned with optimism. On the day of his coronation, Caesar promised to make his people the happiest race in the world. Reality slowly crushed that confidence. Trade routes closed. Food prices climbed. Caesar personally led soldiers to hunt dangerous monsters. 30 demons died. The meat lasted 3 days. When Holy War arrived, Caesar's writing became increasingly bitter. Human soldiers prayed and received healing through sacred tools. Wounded demons screamed in mud without medicine. Caesar kept asking why. Was their suffering justified merely because they had been born demons? Children's drawings covered the walls of his room. Crooked flowers and simple figures filled the paper. The handmade objects were gifts from those children. Later diary entries admitted that Caesar wanted to surrender. Exhaustion had pushed him close to offering himself to the church. He knew humans might burn him alive. Some nights even that sounded easier than continuing. Then Caesar would look at the children's gifts. He always found enough strength for one more day. Wren reached the final page. The paper had been warped by old tears. Caesar wrote it one day before his last battle. His handwriting shook. He apologized to his people. He had failed to create the future he promised. Caesar called himself an unworthy demon king. The diary ended. Wren remained in the chair for a long time. A heavy pressure filled his chest. He closed the book carefully. Then Wren opened the first drawer again. He arranged the children's gifts across the table. Worthless objects had carried the hopes of an entire people. Caesar protected those treasures until the day he died. Wren's vision blurred. He eventually lowered his head onto his folded arms. Sleep took him beside the gifts. Wren dreamed of a golden wheat field. There was no war, no hunger, only grain moving beneath a gentle wind. Sunset filled the room when Wren woke. His neck hurt from sleeping at the desk. He carefully returned every handmade gift to its drawer. Wren treated them like sacred relics. Caesar's diary remained in his hands. He stood at the window and looked across the demon realm. Then his stomach growled loudly enough to destroy the emotional atmosphere. Wren had barely eaten for an entire day and night. He wandered through the castle until he found the kitchen. Wren expected leftovers. Someone had left a covered plate on the chopping board. Warm monster steak waited beneath the lid. Boiled potatoes and wild vegetable soup completed the meal. The steak was burned outside and nearly raw inside. Potatoes had been cut so badly they looked bitten. The soup contained no salt. It was terrible cooking. Wren ate every bite. Somebody had tried. That effort was visible in every clumsy piece of food. Wren quietly thanked the empty kitchen. Afterward, he searched the storage area. A sack of shriveled green beans waited in one corner. Cheap merchant goods had been forgotten there. Wren opened a pod. The seeds were still healthy. Green beans grew quickly. They tolerated difficult conditions. Their roots could improve soil through nitrogen fixation. Wren's hands immediately began itching to work. He grabbed seeds and hurried toward the greenhouse. Inside the dome, the air felt warm and clean. Wren dropped to his knees and planted beans with his bare fingers. Dirt covered his face and filled his nails. Wren smiled like an idiot. Footsteps entered the greenhouse. Ashley found her great sage lying in mud. Wren immediately ordered her to water the field. He also told her to remove the berry bush because it occupied valuable space. Ashley stared at him. Wren finally remembered who he was speaking to. Magic was suppressed inside the greenhouse. Ordinary mages risked damaging their energy channels if they tried casting there. Only Ashley was powerful enough to ignore the suppression. Ren had casually ordered the Demon King to water beans and pull unwanted plants. Ashley sighed. Gentle rain fell across the planted soil. A controlled breeze removed the berry bush. Ren admired the wet earth. He could already imagine green vines and heavy crops. Then he remembered Ashley probably had not visited merely to become his gardener. The Aryan merchant group had made its next move. Mephist's request for stable prices had been rejected. A representative would arrive within half an hour. The merchants believed winter and the human blockade gave them absolute leverage. Ren requested detailed intelligence. He wanted financial records, trade goods, leadership disputes, personal weaknesses. Information was the sharpest weapon in a business war. Cecilia's shadow network was already collecting everything. Ren smiled. He promised to teach the merchants how real negotiation worked. Before Ashley left, Ren stopped her. Caesar's diary came from inside his coat. Ren placed the old book in her hands. Ashley immediately recognized the cover. Something moved behind her calm eyes. Ren turned back toward his field. He told Ashley to read Caesar's frustration. Then she should recover everything the demon race had lost. With interest. That night, Ren returned to the library. His next subject was plant breeding. Drought-resistant wheat could be crossed with varieties producing higher yields. The strongest offspring would be selected. Repeating that process could combine desirable traits. On Earth, controlled breeding required decades. Ashley could grow plants in seconds. Decades of experiments might be compressed into days. Cecilia emerged from the shadows with merchant intelligence. While Ren studied files, she examined his notes. The Aryan caravan was composed of outsiders. Orcs, goblins, humans, and mixed-race merchants worked together. Other societies looked down on them. The caravan survived by exploiting both sides of the conflict. It bought cheap, damaged grain in human territory. That grain was exchanged for valuable demon crystals. Human nobles later purchased those crystals at enormous markups. The 30% price increase was not caused by necessity. It was calculated extortion. Caravan leaders knew holy war was approaching. Demons needed food reserves before winter. Desperation made an excellent customer. One final piece of intelligence made Ren laugh. The caravan leader planned to fund Gareth's hero party. In exchange, he wanted a noble title from human society. The merchants were eating demon profits while sharpening a weapon for demon throats. Cecilia asked about Ren's breeding notes. She struggled to understand how combining plants could produce better plants. Ren used a simple example. Humans produced human children. Elves produced elf children. A human and elf could produce a half-elf. Half-elves inherited traits from both sides. Why should plants be completely different? Cecilia's scroll nearly fell from her hand. Ren told her to remember one word. Genetics. The next morning, Ashley knocked on Ren's door. She wore a formal black robe. Her horns had been carefully polished. Sleep still lingered around her eyes. The merchant representative would arrive soon. Ashley handed Ren a dark mask. His human identity had become dangerous information. The demons now considered Ren too valuable to expose. Merchants whose profits he threatened might hire assassins. Ren agreed. Cutting off someone's money could produce more hatred than killing a relative. He put on the mask. Ashley waited on the throne inside the meeting hall. Ren reviewed Cecilia's final intelligence. The representative's name was Nick. He was a young half-fox and half-human. Nick was also the caravan leader's youngest son. His family had deliberately sent him as a scapegoat. They expected the demons to become furious. Nick was considered expendable enough to absorb that fury. When the young merchant entered, Ren studied him carefully. Fox ears rose above neat hair. A fluffy tail followed him. His clothing was perfect. His expression belonged to someone who had already accepted being sacrificed. Nick bowed and repeated the caravan's demands. Prices would increase. The demons could accept the terms or starve. Ashley had read Caesar's diary. She had also seen crops growing inside Ren's greenhouse. This time the Demon King did not retreat. Ashley dismantled every merchant excuse. She exposed the greed behind each calculation. Nick remained outwardly calm. Ren noticed that the young merchant was actually studying him. Ashley and Mephist radiated tremendous magical power. The masked stranger beside them possessed nothing. Nick probably assumed Ren was a hidden master whose strength exceeded magical detection. When Nick defended the price increase, he performed beautifully. Poor harvests, monster attacks, rising transportation costs. Greed became necessity when Nick described it. Ren had planned to destroy him. Cecilia's intelligence could expose every lie. Then Ren changed his mind. Nick was intelligent. He was talented. And his own family treated him like disposable trash. Ren recognized the resentment hidden in those eyes. A more dangerous idea formed. Why continue fighting foreign merchants? The demons could swallow the entire caravan. Ren suddenly applauded Nick's argument. He announced that the 30% increase seemed completely justified. Silence filled the room. Memphis narrowed his eyes. Ashley looked visibly shocked. Beneath the table, her boot slammed into Ren's leg. Ren grabbed her ankle and pinched the top of her foot in retaliation. Ashley immediately pulled away. Nick could not understand what was happening. He had expected execution. Instead, the mysterious advisor agreed with him. Ren declared the negotiations finished. Then he invited Nick to stay for a meal. Nick accepted because refusing would have made even less sense. He had no idea that the real negotiation had not started. Memphis eventually took Nick on a tour. The moment they left, Ashley removed her veil. Her cheeks puffed with anger. She did not need words. Ren could clearly read the demand for an explanation. He explained his idea. Nick was clever and desperate to prove his worth. His brothers and father underestimated him. Eventually, Nick would fight them for caravan control. The demons could help him win. Secret support would allow Nick to drain the organization from within. A loyal merchant network was more valuable than temporary price negotiations. Ashley understood the long-term advantage. She also understood the risk. Nick was still a merchant. What stopped him from betraying the demons for a better price? Ren took Ashley's hand. He asked her to trust him. Ashley remained silent. Then she nodded. She trusted Ren with the plan. Ren immediately went to the kitchen. A future business partner needed more than promises. Ren found rare monster ham. He sliced it thin. The meat cooked slowly. Ren used the few remaining spices carefully. The smell spread through the kitchen. Memphis brought Nick to lunch. Most dishes were still roots and vegetables. The ham changed the entire table. Memphis conveniently remembered urgent work and left. Ren and Nick sat alone. The merchant kept studying the masked man with no detectable manna. Ren told him to eat. Nick tasted the ham. His eyes widened. He had expected crude demon cooking. The flavors were controlled and carefully balanced. Nick praised the food. Ren sighed dramatically. Simple ingredients limited what even a skilled cook could accomplish. With better materials, Ren could prepare dishes capable of fascinating the continent. Nick's fox ears moved. He understood that they were no longer discussing food. The merchant joined the metaphor. Ingredients mattered less than the chef. Nick knew fools who wasted excellent materials because they lacked skill. A true chef understood heat and timing. Ren asked where such a talented chef could be found. Nick answered without hesitation. He knew one. This chef had a difficult personality. Mediocre people constantly pushed him aside. Nobody had ever seen his real potential. Ren laughed. Real talent eventually revealed itself. He pointed at Nick's plate. Eat. Do not waste food. Something inside Nick broke. The polished merchant mask disappeared. Nick grabbed meat with his hands. He ate like someone swallowing 20 years of humiliation. Near the end of the meal, Ren asked one final question. Suppose the Demon King wished to hire this talented chef. Would he accept becoming the exclusive royal chef of the demon realm? Nick wiped his mouth. Of course. Serving the Demon King would be the greatest honor of that chef's life. Ren and Nick looked at each other. Both men began laughing. The alliance had been formed without either man speaking its true name. Ren next brought Nick into the grand library. Memphis opened the enormous carved doors. Nick froze. Circular shelves stretched dozens of meters upward. Floating magical lights illuminated thousands of books. In human territory, even a damaged fireball scroll could cost a fortune. Here, magical research filled shelves like forgotten junk. Ren threw Nick a dusty book. The volume contained complete information about monster behavior and taming arrays. It described weaknesses, diets, and formations. Nick's hands trembled. Monster attacks were one of the greatest costs facing caravans. This knowledge could reduce those losses. Wind beasts might even be tamed to pull wagons. Caravan speed could multiply. Nick nearly begged to keep the book. Ren reminded him that Memphis owned the library. Borrowing valuable knowledge required showing proper sincerity. Greed and ambition fought inside Nick's eyes. Resolve eventually won. Nick carefully returned the book. At that moment, Ren knew his loyalty had shifted. His family's small grain extortion suddenly seemed pathetic beside the opportunities inside the demon realm. Ren next showed him the greenhouse. Healthy green beans grew in soil the world considered cursed. Nick understood immediately. The demons were solving their food crisis. His father's greatest leverage was disappearing. Ren showed Nick a mana-gathering formation. Energy from the atmosphere condensed into cheap, low-grade crystals. High-grade crystals belonged to nobles. Ordinary mages and apprentices struggled to afford magical resources. Cheap crystals could dominate the bottom of the market. The demons could produce a tremendous supply. Ren wanted payment in seeds, cold-resistant wheat, high-yield rice, drought-tolerant vegetables. Any useful crop varieties Nick could obtain. Nick accepted immediately. Then his merchant instincts produced an idea Ren had overlooked. Why not raise monsters? Human knights consumed monster meat for training. Wild monsters were dangerous and expensive to hunt. Greenhouse crops could become livestock feed. Demon knowledge could make controlled monster breeding possible. A massive new market existed across the continent. Ren stared at Nick. The young fox really was a natural merchant. Nick left with a secret agreement. Publicly, the 30% price increase remained in place. Privately, he had become the demon realm's future commercial weapon. Ashley appeared beside Ren after Nick departed. She wore work clothes with rolled sleeves. Her hair had been tied into a ponytail. Ren announced that the fish had taken the bait. Ashley rolled her eyes. Thanks to Ren's brilliant projects, the mighty Demon King now had to work inside crystal mines. Their early greenhouse expansion still required material reserves. Before Ashley left, Ren asked about magical animals. He needed creatures that ate little, grew quickly, and reproduced rapidly. Ashley directed him toward Baru. Ren began researching livestock candidates. Flame pigs could burn wooden farms. Rock-armored cows developed too slowly. Acid rabbits produced waste nobody wanted to clean. This world's monsters had never experienced generations of systematic domestication. Finding ideal livestock was unexpectedly difficult. Cecilia eventually found Ren studying late at night. She placed a warm beast wool blanket over his shoulders. The little madman had become the hope of the demon race. Cecilia also explained why Gareth could not simply be assassinated. Demons had tried throughout history. Poison failed. Blades failed. Sacrificial attacks failed. Before a chosen hero matured, divine protection always interfered. Meteors struck assassins. Sacred barriers appeared. Spatial accidents carried heroes away. The rules of this world protected Gareth until his destined confrontation. Ren called it plot immunity, supported by a cheating goddess. Since killing Gareth was impossible, Ren returned to problems he could actually solve. Cecilia carried him through shadows to Baru's territory. Ren expected another gloomy wasteland. Instead, warm bonfires filled a wide valley. Hundreds of civilians celebrated around the flames. Baru sat on a stone altar distributing sweets to ragged demon children. The enormous demon lord smiled like a giant grandfather. Children thanked him and ran away clutching precious candy. Baru noticed Ren. Excitement shook his massive body. He welcomed the great sage who had given demons edible potatoes. Ren explained his search for livestock. Baru knew nearly every edible creature in demon territory. Their discussion eventually led toward the magic ant beasts. Ren traveled with Baru and Cecilia across barren land. They reached what appeared to be a hill more than 100 meters tall. Ren searched for the entrance to a nest. Baru told him to stop looking for a hole. The entire hill was the nest. Millions of magical insects had created it over generations. Ren's scalp tingled. A colony that large required enormous food resources. Yet the surrounding desert contained almost no visible vegetation. The mystery drew Ren underground. Inside the hive revealed an entire hidden society. Millions of insects lived through organized tunnels and chambers. They cultivated fungi using magical crystals. Their queen possessed intelligence far beyond ordinary monsters. She had evolved repeatedly throughout her life. To survive longer, the queen sacrificed her own egg-laying function. Specialized reproductive insects inherited that work. She evolved structures capable of producing complex sound. She expanded her brain to command millions of individuals. Intelligence allowed the hive to survive where instinct alone would have failed. The queen had built a civilization. She was also dying. Insect evolution possessed enormous potential. It lacked inheritance. The queen's tactics, language, memories, and emotions would disappear with her body. Without her mind, the colony would eventually return to wild behavior. Guards brought forward a white egg surrounded by faint golden light. The queen pushed it toward Ren. Her child represented a future she would never see. The queen asked the demon race to protect the insect people. Until her death, the hive would provide shells, silk, and excess nutrient eggs. Ren promised that demons would provide food in return. Baru personally guaranteed the agreement. The insect queen finally relaxed. Her silk immediately opened another path inside Ren's mind. Back at the castle, improved harvests were already changing daily life. Potato and monster stew replaced bitter roots on many tables. Fresh green beans appeared beside meals. Some civilians in Demon King City could finally eat twice each day. Ren received reports from Nick at the human border. The fox merchant's ambition had only grown. Ren began designing textile machines around the magic ant silk. Spinning wheels and shuttle looms transformed tangled fibers into consistent yarn and fabric. Ren planned luxury silk for wealthy elves and warm blended cloth for the massive human market. Nick secretly prepared to seize his father's caravan, while Cecilia tested whether the young merchant deserved Wren's trust. 50 miles from the castle, thousands of tireless skeletons moved stone, timber, and clay across the dark red plain. Bone Lord Morton directed the undead workforce as a large, ugly, flat-roofed production building rose from the wasteland. Wren's ideas had turned poisonous roots into food-cursed earth, into farmland insects into partners, and ignored magical research into machinery. Nick sharpened the Demon Realm's business strategy while Cecilia carried orders through shadows, and Ashley pushed her exhausted kingdom forward. Across the Red Plains, skeleton workers continued moving materials without hunger, sleep, or complaint. Beneath Morton's bored gaze, the factory kept rising not as a monument to magic but as a machine built for ordinary production. Wren entered the Demon Realm asking only for a bed and a meal, and he ended this chapter by giving a starving nation the foundations of a future.